Words. Words break reality into pieces, creating illusions of isolated things out of an actual singularity. Ideas behind words take on a significance of their own. Volume 5 pieces expose words and ideas as artificial, to reveal the interrelated oneness, which is the essence of the reality you encounter. Smoking. That isn't really a problem, but rather a symptom of some deeper and very important problems. Let's light up a discussion about smoking. The Essence of Reality explores how the psyche which you are creates the reality you encounter. So, multiple greetings. You found the essence of reality, this one-of-a-kind look at how life actually works. Here we set gaze beyond standard thinking to see how you attract events and relationships, thus creating your own life. It's all about awareness of that oneness of you with reality. And that recognition is only ever diminished by beliefs and common notions. We do have much to cover, so enjoy this episode and explore other ones. As we look in Volume 5 at individual words and the ideas they represent, the point is to illustrate how words themselves create illusions in the mind. Very often, meaning attributed to the word is not what it seems. And beyond that, the idea implanted in the mind via communication may well be considerably different than reality. Here the focus is on reality. And you see that ever more clearly by realizing the illusory notion tied up in a word or idea. The last couple episodes looked into large-scale elements of life, love and fear. Here we downshift to a single, straightforward aspect of daily life, a word indicating an activity not uncommon in modern life. Smoking, as in cigarettes, cigars, and even the newest craze, vaping electronic cigarettes. The principal focus here is why. Why, in the entire realm of possible activities a human can undertake, why in scope of modern reason would anybody suck, smoke, or any chemical into his or her lungs? Tom Nair here. I speak from a unique standpoint. I've spent years clearing away deceiving ideas to achieve what I call clear awareness. Life works well when you see that you alone drive yours. So these videos are intended only to help you see past common misconceptions, to recognize how life actually works. I grew through my childhood in the 1950s when smoking was highly stylish. Nearly half the adult population in the U.S. smoked around the 60s. By now, late in the second decade of the 21st century, smoking has waned considerably, with less than 18% now smoking. Of course, there are a lot more people now too, so the number of smokers remains fairly steady. And around the world, there are at least 1 billion people who smoke. Already as a kid, though, it astounded me that anybody would want to suck smoke into their lungs. I hated it when both my parents smoked, and the damn smoke always seemed to waft its way towards me, regardless of where the cigarette was propped and where I was sitting in the room. Just imagine, though, the sensitivity and delicate nature of the alveoli in your lungs, and the need for them to process oxygen and pass it along into the blood for the rest of your body. How anybody can deliberately suck burned material into those membranes, well, that's just it. Why do people do that? Conventional wisdom has it that people get hooked when they first try smoking while they're young and presumably stupid or let's say unwise. Once they become addicted to the nicotine, then their body craves it, so they can't quit. Well, that, as with most conventional wisdom, is neither particularly wise itself, nor is it accurate. The physical addiction, I can assure you, is a minor feature. Knowing just how the mind works, its complex interrelationship with subconscious values and drives, I can indicate numerous factors within the mindset that commonly motivate a young person to start smoking. And because the subconscious is timeless, it functions in the now moment based on current values and beliefs. Until those are changed, the psychological factors that led to smoking in the first place will remain. And smoking, or the strong inner drive to smoke, will continue. Some can overcome this inner drive through personal fortitude. But regarding the inner conflict that for certain underlies the smoking act, if the gesture is suppressed, that conflictual nature will simply find some other outlet. Inner conflict will always find some aspect of life in which to manifest trouble. Overall, I can imagine at least 7 common interests that would motivate the young mind to start smoking. Doubtless there are more, and for certain in each case, for each smoker, there would be a different combination of inner mechanisms that underlie the habit. I cover all that in Volume 3 issues that illustrate the subconscious and how to change it. But the smoker, rather than wallow through extreme anguish and stress to try rationally to suppress the inner drive to smoke, can simply delve into the subconscious, find the psychological roots driving the need to smoke, and dispel them. When that's done, when the inner drive is dispelled, quitting is really, really easy. Well, one clarification. The process for delving inward is simple and straightforward, but the subconscious can be quite complex and the underlying mechanisms diverse and perhaps multifaceted. But without clearing away the inner driving mechanisms, stopping smoking will be highly conflictual and, if successful, will lead, just as I noted, to other problems. So, people smoke because at some point they started. And they started because some set of values they held motivated them to. They won't easily quit until that set of values is dispelled. So here are 7 value-laden motivators that most likely start a kid to puffing. First, rebellion against parental authority. A certain part of each of us wants to be free and in control of our lives. For sure, in some instances facing certain authoritarian qualities in parents, a youth can start smoking just to rebel against the authority of parents or culture in general. A second factor can be looking grown up, at least in the mind of the youth. We all, growing through teen years when sexuality and self-confidence are undergoing change, want to look more adult, more grown up. In some eyes, smoking looks adult-like. Zing! Motivation to try it. Add to that, number 3, the cultural impression of smokers as tough guys, badass, mean and self-assertive. In many ways, our standard view of life cuts us off from the world, such that toughness with an attitude is a positive thing, a great feature of one's persona. Of course, in reality, each of us is connected to life. We each manifest qualitatively the life we encounter. So the motivation to look and actually be tough is bound to attract situations that require toughness. And conflictual relationships. It's that factor that commonly leads to the manifestation of cancer and heart disease later on. Side point here. Smoking doesn't cause cancer, but the same inner elements that lead to smoking can also manifest conflict-based illnesses, which cancer is. We'll look at that in the next episode. Okay, add to looking tough a 4th motivation, the common unconscious practice of emulating particular popular figures, movie characters, bad guys, charismatic stars who look so cool smoking. It's easy to place that glamorous image into one's own self-image, to replicate the look in subconscious hopes that it carries some added boost to one's projected persona. As a fifth factor, we find that widely recognized influence of going along with the crowd, belonging, emulating the crowd's lifestyle, clothes, behavioral traits, and so forth. That's a strong influence on personal behavior of a youth growing up. If some of the popular kids smoke, for some of the above reasons, kids less athletic or less handsome or whatever, the lesser popular ones perhaps may well feel the need to smoke as well, to go along with friends, be accepted, be part of the crowd. Strangely, the need for being accepted, being loved in effect, can motivate smoking. Strange indeed. Pressure is involved too for making oneself attractive to the opposite sex. Smoking can seem to carry a coolness along with the toughness. And that's funny. Tragic sort of funny, that is, because smoking is just really stupid. And it isn't tough at all, it's weak, giving in to some or all of the above drives, rather than exerting personal integrity and individuality. Okay, last on the list is also probably fairly commonly known. Oral stimulation harkens back to breastfeeding. We like to be stimulating the lips. Feels good. And that is a carryover from the early months of life when we were likely held and loved at the same time we received nourishment. Again, each of these factors, and perhaps others, can be found behind the smoking habit. For the smoker, finding the explicit roots to the habit and dispelling them can allow for relatively easy release of the habit. For others, the same situation underlies any habit, any unhealthy practice like alcoholism and drug addiction. We'll look at those at some point too. For now, understand that smoking is not simply a problem unto itself. Smoking is actually a symptom of inner issues. If you deal with those inner issues, you stop smoking, and life will improve in many other ways too. Why, in the entire realm of possible activities a human can undertake, why in scope of modern reason would anybody suck, smoke, or any chemical into his or her lungs? So, people smoke because some set of values they held motivated them to. They won't easily quit until that set of values is jettisoned. I can imagine at least 7 common interests that would motivate the young mind to start smoking. Okay, first, rebellion. Rebellion against parental authority. A second factor, looking grown up. Number 3, the cultural impression of smokers as tough guys, badass, mean and self-assertive. A fourth motivation, the common unconscious practice of emulating particular popular figures, movie characters, bad guys, charismatic stars who look so cool smoking. The fifth factor, we find that widely recognized influence of going along with the crowd. Pressure is involved too for making oneself attractive to the opposite sex. And that's funny. Tragic sort of funny, that is, because smoking is just really stupid. Last on the list, oral stimulation harkens back to breastfeeding. We like to be stimulating the lips. Feels good. Smoking is not simply a problem unto itself. Smoking is actually a symptom of inner issues. If you deal with those inner issues, you stop smoking,